Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Respected assembly, today we are raising an issue of extreme importance in Buddhism. It is a matter of life and death for Buddhism itself. If we look out at the world, look at our fellow religions, and then look back at our own Buddhism, we will see that we are lagging behind them by 50, even 60 years. Our fellow religions, they set fierce goals. They are determined to spread their faith, to take over entire regions of followers. For example, they might direct a missionary telling him, "For the My Swan region, I'm assigning you a target of 2,000 followers." And that missionary goes down there and toils, going house to house, using every means necessary to lure people into the religion. This means there is a fierce top-down directive. He gets there and uses every trick in the book. If he meets someone who likes fortune-telling, he'll show off his fortune-telling skills. For someone running a business, he'll offer loans, getting them indebted to him so they are forced to join the religion. If someone likes to sing, he sings for them. If they like doctrine, he tells them stories. In other words, whatever anyone desires, he arrives and fulfills it completely, all to draw people into his faith. And so, after a few years, that region has several thousand followers. They register their members, get state approval, and immediately apply to build a church. You see, they are fierce, and that ferocity comes from a directive, from the top down. But we don't have that. Why? We say, "Oh, I'll just wait for someone to come and cut off their own arm, and then I'll accept them just like Hike." We've become arrogant just like Bodhidharma. "If no one comes to me, I'll just turn my back to the wall and refuse to speak. Only when he cuts off his arm and I see how pitiful he is will I turn around." Let me ask you, in this day and age, is anyone going to cut off their arm? If we were to ask someone 3 questions and they just turned their back on us, we'd probably slap them and storm out of the temple for good. This is why the story of Bodhidharma and Hike, if we are not skillful, will be the ruin of Buddhism. From it, we have developed this arrogant, indifferent attitude towards lay followers. People have already made the effort to come to our temple, and we still act arrogant. Meanwhile, our fellow religions are going to each person, to each family, to bring them into the fold. Therefore, when it comes to the work of Dharma propagation, we are completely weak, utterly terrible at it. Our Dharma propagation is just terrible, to put it bluntly. The number of Buddhist followers isn't increasing by much at all, while our fellow religions are growing like a flood. One day, we will step out onto the street and realize there is no one left who is our follower. And only then will we weep. You young monks must remember this. Right now, you receive offerings from the people, but whose merit is that? It is the merit of those who came before you. They created a community of lay followers and left them behind for you to benefit from. You, in turn, must create a new community of followers so that when you are old, you can leave them for the next generation of monastics. You must ensure they have followers to support them. Otherwise, there will be no one left to offer support. And one more thing. If the lay community is large, the number of people who ordain will also be large, correct? People ordain from the lay community. If lay followers stop coming to the temple, it means no one will ordain anymore. For instance, if 1,000 lay followers come to the temple, perhaps 1, 2, or even 3 people might choose to ordain. But if only 10 people come to the temple, don't even dream of having a single person ordain. The temple will fall into a state of 1 monk, 1 temple. And when that monk grows old and passes away, the local villagers will simply take turns lighting incense. No one will know anything more about the Dharma. This is the tragic fate of Buddhism that has already been happening for several hundred years. That is why when the French arrived here, they spread their religion like a thunderstorm. It was because there were no Buddhist followers, no believers, no one from our religion setting foot there to propagate the Dharma. And then, they used their large number of followers to form an army that occupied our country. It is a painful history. Therefore, the development of Buddhism is the sacred duty of the Sangha. But to develop Buddhism, you must make people love Buddhism. And to make people love Buddhism, there must be a way for them to access the teachings. And among the many ways to access the teachings of Buddhism, ritual is number 1. It is the center. Anyone who comes to a religion kneels, prostrates, chants a few sentences, and makes a few vows. But for the past several hundred years, our chanting texts have been designed only for those of the highest, most superior spiritual capacity. The ordinary, everyday lay followers have no part in them. Let's take the simple example of the Universal Gate Sutra. We keep calling it our most popular sutra, but in reality it is our most advanced. Why? Because it doesn't talk about how to practice. It only talks about encountering disaster and praying to Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara is very responsive. The vows of the Bodhisattva are magnificent, and that's the end of the story. There is no method of practice, is there? After chanting that text, who knows how to practice? They might praise it as beautiful, but how do they eliminate greed, anger, and delusion? How do they get rid of the selfishness, the jealousy, the sensual desires in their own hearts? There's nothing. And so they push everything onto other power, just praying to Avalokiteshvara. But spiritual cultivation is not about other power. Spiritual cultivation must be a battle with oneself. Therefore, that sutra is only suitable for those who are already practicing. That is, they already have their own methods of practice, and they chant this text as a supplement for reference to learn about the great vows of Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. And then there's another text, the Heart Sutra. Everything is no. Everything is emptiness. Does anyone really understand it and praise it as profound? I ask you here, which one of you venerables truly understands that sutra and praises it? For the most part, we have misunderstood it completely. It's just no, no, no. And the lay followers stop coming to the temple. Many even start denying cause and effect. That sutra is for those of the highest capacity, for people of extreme wisdom who have already realized the path. It begins, a bodhisattva, practicing the profound prajnaparamita, is for a bodhisattva, not for us. Yet we take that sutra and give it to everyone to chant. They chant it, they misunderstand it, they get it wrong, they lose their way in their practice, and the Buddha becomes a complete mystery. And what about the great compassion mantra? If anyone could chant that and understand it, I'd be floored. We are chanting meaningless sounds. There is no focused intention for cultivation. When we chant Namo Ratnatriya, or the Shurangama mantra for a full half-hour session, we have no spiritual intention at all. There is only blind faith, the belief that chanting this is probably very sacred, or chanting this will probably eliminate my desires. Probably. The belief is just a probably. It's not certain. When we were novices, back at our root temple, we would wake up, meditate, and then go cook rice. We didn't chant the Shurangama. Then a senior venerable told us that if we didn't memorize it, he'd kick us out of the temple. So we had to go ask another teacher for help. Venerable, please give me 5 days. We did our chores in the morning and studied every afternoon. We memorized the entire mantra in 5 days. But we didn't like it, because it has no intention for practice. You're just chanting sounds without meaning. Much later, scholars delved into the Pali Canon and found translations for those words. They do have meaning, it's not that they don't. But even those meanings are vague. The Great Compassion Mantra, for example, is mostly a prayer to Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, asking for this or that on behalf of sentient beings. It doesn't contain a method for cultivation. And then, after being transliterated from Sanskrit to Chinese, and from Chinese to Vietnamese, the sounds became completely distorted and meaningless. So, when a ritual is meaningless, and the people encounter it, they form no intention related to the path. Without an intention for the path, they cannot grow in the virtues of practice. And without growing in the virtues of practice, they cannot develop a Dharma heart, a love for the Dharma. Remember that term. A Dharma heart means a love for the Dharma. If you don't understand the path, you don't know how to practice, which means you have no Dharma virtue. Without Dharma virtue, you cannot grow your Dharma heart, your love for the Dharma. And without a love for the Dharma, will they continue to be disciples of Buddhism? Will they continue to revere the Sangha? No. And Buddhism immediately weakens. So we have these sutras meant for those of the highest capacity. But for some reason, we hand them out to everyone. from the old lady selling vegetables to the university intellectual. And intellectuals are allergic to blind faith. For an educated person, you have to explain things logically. Don't just demand that they believe. So for the Westerners coming to Buddhism today, don't even dream of getting them to chant the Buddha's name and pray for rebirth in the Pure Land. That is a practice of faith, and they won't play that game. If we meet an American researcher of Buddhism and say, we have the Pure Land School. You chant the Buddha's name, and after you die, you'll be reborn there, they will laugh and walk away. They only seek out meditation, things that are supremely rational. That is what they will accept. Blind faith is a non-starter. Here in the Vietnamese countryside, it might be fine for some, but for the intellectual class across the world flocking to Buddhism today, they are not interested in the Pure Land School. They also have little interest in the esoteric school, because it belongs to the realm of faith. It's the elderly ladies who love faith-based practice. But those elderly ladies are not the ones who can develop the Dharma, who can propagate the Dharma. Therefore, when we promote a ritual that is based purely on faith with no element of active cultivation, we only attract those who no longer have the capacity to act. Remember that. But if we promote a ritual with a high degree of rationality, where people chant a text and emerge with a clear path for practice, where their love for the Dharma increases, then we will attract many different segments of society to our faith. I say this because we have experimented with this at Phat Quang Pagoda, and we have succeeded. Someday, when you have the chance, I invite you venerables to visit Phat Quang during a major ceremony. You will see it is filled with young people. You will see youths, intellectuals, and a great many men. In the past, when I would go give talks, I would enter a temple and see a hall full of white hair. The whole room was white hair. I gave talks for a few years, and gradually the hair started turning black. And now it has turned a youthful dark again. A talk I give today is filled with dark-haired youths. It's all young people who come. Why? Because we walk the path of reason, not the path of blind faith. Blind faith is for the elderly ladies. The intellectuals reject it immediately. That is for listening to a talk. Now let's get back to rituals. You don't always have a lecture. When people come to the temple, sometimes they just want to kneel, chant a short text, and go home. Or they come during a chanting session and follow along with the venerables. If those chanting texts are filled with practical, easy to understand, fundamental principles of cultivation, they will absorb them into their hearts immediately. And when they absorb them into their hearts, they have a path to follow. Their minds brighten, they like it, they get excited, they find it interesting, and they come to love the Dharma. Remember that. When we understand something rational and beneficial, we feel happy. Remember that as a principle. Remember this principle. When we understand something beneficial, we feel happy. And the chanting texts must give them that feeling. So now let's define ritual. What is the purpose of a ritual? Every religion has rituals. Without them, you cannot have a religion. That is why some sects that look down on rituals are destined to self-destruct. Just the other day, I was speaking with the head meditation master. He told me a story about a funeral for a nun nearby. He said he went, and there was no ritual at all. They were treating the corpse like a toy. Treating the corpse like a toy. I don't know what school they followed. Something about breaking attachments. But breaking attachments in such a way ruins your own mind. Everything has a cause and an effect. Anything we do with dignity produces a dignified result. Anything we treat with respect produces a result of respect and nobility. But if we are sloppy and careless, then at the end of our lives, we will find ourselves living a sloppy, careless life, good for nothing. No one will even look at us. But if we maintain proper, dignified, and solemn rituals, then as we grow older, we become more noble, we possess more virtuous power, living beings will respect us, and we will accumulate more merit. Therefore, ritual is important, but the ritual must be correct. Anyone who claims to break attachments and needs no ceremony will see how they end up, like a beggar, dragging themselves through a pitiful existence. So ritual is very important. So, what is the purpose of ritual? First, we offer our vows to the Buddha. Or to put it another way, we are reporting our homework to the Buddha. The second purpose of ritual is this. As we chant, we allow ourselves to absorb that very principle into our soul. We allow ourselves to bring that principle back into our very soul. Although the mouth is chanting, the mind is rebuilding itself. Therefore, the words must have proper principles. Don't let them be meaningless. The third purpose is to allow the entire assembly to share the same understanding of practice. In the spirit of the 6 harmonies, specifically, harmony in views. When a great assembly chants as one, they are all walking the same principled path, sharing a common understanding of the teachings. In this way, life becomes free of conflict, contradiction, and disagreement. Because we are all chanting the same text, walking the same path, life naturally becomes harmonious. For example, if the sutra speaks of humility, the entire assembly becomes humble and gentle. That is the third purpose. The fourth purpose involves those who are not chanting with us, but just happen to be standing by. For example, we might be chanting at a funeral at a family's home. Some guests are not Buddhists. They do not chant along. But as they listen, they come to understand more about the principles of Buddhism. That is the fourth purpose. For listeners to understand the principles of Buddhism. They stand on the outside not chanting, but by merely listening, they begin to like it. They begin to love Buddhism. This fourth purpose is very important. At many funerals, non-Buddhists have stood and listened to the venerables chant a repentance text, and through that understanding, they have decided to follow Buddhism. It is very powerful. The fifth purpose is for the formless spirits to hear and receive benefit from the spiritual power of the sutra. When a sutra contains correct principles, it naturally possesses spiritual power. That is the fifth purpose, for the formless spirits to hear and to benefit. The sixth purpose is for the celestial beings, the devas, to evaluate us, and in response to protect us. As we chant the words, if our mind follows those words and advances, it creates a response that reaches the heavens. That temple will naturally become stable and prosperous. When the chanting text is good, the response reaches the devas immediately. Those are the 6 purposes. You venerables must grasp them firmly. Now, for the requirements of a good ritual. The ritual must present a practical method of cultivation. You can't just chant, finish, and have no idea what to do next. The ritual must provide a practical method. How do you work with anger? How do you work with greed? How do you focus the mind? Can't be that you chant, close the book, and are left clueless. Venerable, I chanted the great compassion mantra. What's my practice now? Oh, just keep chanting it. My child, it's very sacred. That is a superstitious response, unable to explain, unable to reason. Just telling people to believe. In that, we become just like a superstition. Spirituality is not superstition, but in an instant we can fall into it. It's like chanting the Heart Sutra where everything is emptiness. How should I practice, teacher? Just keep chanting. Eventually you'll understand. That is an irresponsible answer. Therefore, a good chanting text is one where, after you finish chanting, you know the way to practice. That is the first requirement. And by knowing how to practice, the chanting text must be able to increase the Dharma heart of the assembly. After one ceremony, the Dharma heart must increase, even just a little. Remember that. The second requirement is that each ceremony must increase the Dharma heart of the assembly, that is, their love for the Dharma. Fat Kwang Pagoda, this is our rule. For every major ceremony, many people come. And I say just one thing to my disciples. What is the purpose of this ceremony? That after it ends, everyone's Dharma heart has grown. If we achieve that, we are successful. Our profit is right there. We don't calculate profit and loss. We never think about it. We never call for donations, never. We spend a great deal of money on a major ceremony, and what do we get in return? We get back the Dharma heart of the people. They are moved, they love the Dharma, that is our profit. Our profit is right there. It's not about saying, I organized a major ceremony, let's calculate. How much was donated? How much did we invest? What's our return? What's the profit? What's the loss? We don't do those calculations. We absolutely must not think that way. We think of only one thing. We look to see whether people's Dharma heart has increased. That is our profit. And that is how we repay the Buddha. So, the requirement for a ritual is that it must offer a practical method of cultivation. And the second requirement is that it must make everyone's love for the Dharma grow. The third requirement is that it must be easy to understand. The language must be modern and elegant. You cannot use the rustic, uneducated language of the countryside that devalues the Buddha's teachings. The chanting text must be clear. You read it, you understand it. The language must be modern, the language of our time today, and the language must be elegant. No rustic language. The best language for our chanting texts comes from the central and northern regions of Vietnam. We should limit the use of language from the Mekong Delta in the south, because it is not as elegant. The most dignified language comes from Hue and the north. We must remember this. As monks, you must become proficient in the dialects of all regions, not just your own. The fourth requirement is that it must be easy to chant. The melody must be simple enough for everyone to follow. And that melody must be loved by the people. The chanting melody must be easy, not overly complex, and it must be a melody that the people of that time enjoy. What does easy to follow mean? I recently went to central Vietnam for a ceremony. I praised the monks there. "Venerables, your chanting style is so beautiful." They replied, "Venerable, after we ordain, we have to study chanting for 3 years. We invite a special teacher to come and teach for 3 years." And indeed, they chanted beautifully, very professionally. But when one of them stood up to lead the chant, the lay followers just stood there and stared. They couldn't follow along at all. Why? Because they hadn't undergone 3 years of professional training. Only the monks had. Even I just stood there and stared, unable to join in. It was not easy to follow. That is a failure of a ritual. And what are we trying to do? We are always trying to attract more people to Buddhism, to bring more people to our services. Yet here, the monks have locked themselves away in an ivory tower. They have reserved the practice as a privilege for a few professionals, not opening it to the public. The melody itself is a failure. And what does loved by the people mean? It means that whatever musical style is popular in a given era, we should bring that style into Buddhism. What are we doing with our rituals today? We are clinging to the styles of 100 or 200 years ago, styles that people today are no longer interested in. For example, the typical nightly chant we use here in the South is based on a Southern lullaby style. The great scholar Tran Van Ky analyzed it and showed that Buddhist chanting in the South adopted the local tonal scales and musical structures. The city of Hue uses its own lullaby style, and some chants were even taken from the royal court. But the North still has no distinct style of its own. They just chant without a real melody. That's why at large ceremonies that include Southerners, the Northern monks all adopt the Southern chanting style. They have to because the North still lacks its own style, even though it has rich folk music traditions that were very popular in the past. But they were never brought into Buddhism. I was once watching an American movie and was astonished. Inside their church, they had a full band, complete with a drum set. We tend to think that rituals must be solemn, right? That a church would never have drums. A Catholic church, for example, typically has only a piano or an organ and a choir. The priest conducts the mass, and the choir sings in beautiful, professional harmony. It's grand. But then you step into a Protestant church, and you're in for a shock. It's completely different. They're up there, beating on drums, playing electric guitars. You'd think you were at a rock concert, but when you listen to the lyrics, it's all about God. Lord, give me love. Lord, give me life. And as they sing, they dance. Everyone, old men, old women, stands up and dances along. First, it's shocking. You think, what on earth kind of religion is this? But after you sit and reflect, you realize, my God, they are going to win over the entire public this way. You ask people why they like it, and they say, going to church is fun. They are being filled with faith, yes, but the music is also fun. From the pastor to the congregation, everyone gets up and dances. This means they are constantly updating their rituals to match the times. Protestant churches are far ahead of Catholic churches in this regard. They update their music daily, turning their chants into modern songs, going all the way. The Catholic Church is more hesitant, perhaps because their music is too academic and professional. And our Buddhism? We are living 200 or 300 years in the past. When young people come to the temple, you ask them why they don't stay, and they say, "It's too boring. I don't like it. Going to church is more fun." We are being completely defeated on this front. Completely defeated. That is why at Phat Quang Pagoda, we pushed modern music into our rituals immediately. Nearly 30 years ago, when I was teaching, there was a year-end ceremony. The senior monks were all sitting around. I got up and sang a song I had composed before ordaining, a flower offering song. After I finished, one of the senior, enlightened masters scolded me. A monk, singing and humming like that. The very next day, that same master was invited to a large ceremony at a church. He saw their magnificent orchestra and choir and was completely mesmerized. Only then did he realize how critically important music is in religion. After that, he stopped scolding me. Later, when I went up to the mountains to establish our own school, I composed music for every ritual. There was a traditional chant about the unsurpassed Dharma king, but I wasn't satisfied with the existing translation, so I turned it into a new song. The moment you release something like that, university students flock to the temple. They say, "This song is beautiful, easy to understand, elegant, and we love it." At the end of every service, the entire assembly sings a song together. For the sacred Dharma we go, to 1,000 places, with a heart as vast as the sun. When the whole community sings with such spirit, everyone is moved. After every service like that, their love for the Dharma grows. We pushed modern music into every ritual. Some parts still use ancient chanting styles, but they are always accompanied by modern music. And what is the result? The result is that young people flock to Phat Quang Pagoda in huge numbers. On major festival days like Buddha's birthday, Vulan, or Enlightenment Day 1800 to 2000 youths come to the temple to help. And let me tell you, one of these young people can eat as much as 10 ordinary adults. They have the energy of youth. One girl can easily eat 6 boxes of rice. Why? Because I tell them, when you are here at the temple, you must eat more than you work. But when you step outside the temple, you must work more than you eat. Because your contribution to the world must be greater than your consumption. But the temple is your home, so here you have the right to eat. Eat to your heart's content. Eat to make up for all the times you were hungry in your dormitories. The kids love this. Oh, they eat and eat. All day long they ask for food. But through this, they understand that the temple is their home. We have written so many songs for our services. For the Buddha's birthday ceremony, there's a song called "The One Has Come." After the formal prostrations and readings, the entire assembly, from the monks to the elderly to the children, holds a beautifully printed booklet containing the lyrics. The preparation is meticulous. As they hold this dignified text, their voices fill the mountains and forests. The One has come, as vast as 1,000,000 suns. He has come, bringing faith and love to 1,000 places. He has stepped forth, and lotus flowers have bloomed. Imagine tens of thousands of people singing that song together. It is incredibly moving. Many people sing through their tears. Through a ceremony like that, their love for the Dharma, their Dharma heart grows stronger. Because we integrate modern music into everything. The ancient repentance chants are still done properly, with the traditional wooden fish. For instance, at the recent Buddha's birthday ceremony, I wrote a brand new repentance text. I gave it to a high-ranking venerable, the General Secretary of the Buddhist Church of Vietnam, and he used it to lead the official ceremony. The text begins by describing the procession of Queen Maya, the Buddha's mother, painting a vivid scene. Then it transitions to speaking about the love for the Dharma, about spiritual practice, and then about love for one's country. The temple reflects the soul of our homeland. The more one loves the precious Dharma, the more profound and sacred the love for our motherland. We weave together the love of Dharma and the love of nation. All the government officials in attendance were given a copy, and they all chanted along enthusiastically. They saw themselves in those words, the Dharma and the nation, intertwined. The text then expands to a global vision. The world belongs to no one in particular. People, though strangers, are kin. Let us join hands to build a lotus pedestal, with peace and humanity as its foundation. It was completely persuasive. A new ritual composed for our time. Before that chant, a powerful song rings out from the speakers, and everyone sings along. Then they kneel to chant the repentance text together. But there must always be a Dharma talk. This is a flaw in many of our ceremonies. A major event with no Dharma talk. I have observed this in many places and have criticized the senior monks heavily for it. Venerable, you hold a grand ceremony but offer no Dharma talk. The ritual alone is not enough to carry the event's full potential. There must always be a talk. To be able to bring modern music into our rituals, you venerables must become skilled in music theory and learn to play an instrument like the keyboard. We cannot just wait. I once told a story to a hesitant meditation master. The Buddha was once walking past a field where a farmer was plowing. The farmer saw the Buddha and thought about paying his respects, but then decided, it's too much trouble now. I'll finish my work. I'll greet him next time. The moment he had that thought, the Buddha stopped and told his monks, this farmer is always making appointments with the future. He will stand there plowing forever, never escaping his fate, because he always says next time. I then looked at the master and said, Master, you are the same. You just keep saying we have to wait for time. If we wait, Buddhism will die. The time for waiting is over. Our fellow religions are reforming every single day to attract followers, while we just wait. Another point. In a ritual, you must vary the posture, sitting, standing, kneeling. Just don't let them lie down. Why? It's about psychology to keep people from getting tired. We monks are professionals. We can kneel for an hour straight, but lay people cannot. For any single posture, they can manage about 10 minutes at most. We must switch to another posture right after that. This way, they can comfortably participate in the entire service. There are certain ceremonies, of course, that require extended kneeling, but those are for special occasions. For general services, forcing people to kneel for too long is a failure. They get exhausted. They push their willpower to its limit one time, and the next time you announce a chanting service, they will avoid it. It becomes an unpleasant struggle. Our hearts must be placed in the hearts of the assembly. So, remember this requirement. You must create genuine, noble emotion through every ceremony. If, at the end of a service, you look out and see that everyone is just blank-faced, you know that service has failed. They were just going through the motions to get it over with. The test of a successful Buddhist ritual is this. When ordinary lay people busy with worldly affairs, participate in the chanting and enjoy it, the ritual is a success. If they don't enjoy it, then we must fix that ritual. We must update it, renew it. And to do that, you venerables must be creative. And being creative is linked to knowing how to compose poetry. That is why you must learn. You must be able to create new rituals for specific situations. Imagine you are invited to a home where a newborn baby has just passed away. What text do you chant? Has a text for that situation ever been written? No. You must be able to create one on the spot. This is why being a monk requires the ability to compose poetry, so you can create new rituals day by day to meet the needs of the people, to guide them and bring them to the Dharma. If the text is good, perhaps other temples will use it, and your merit will grow even greater. Now, let's briefly touch on economics to understand our situation. In the old economy, who was king? The producer, the one who created the product. If you wanted beer, the beer company was king. If you wanted a mobile phone, the phone manufacturer was king. You had to go to them. But that era passed. Then the distributor became king. You can produce whatever you want, but without me to distribute it, your product will rot in a warehouse. But today, even the distributor is losing power. Who is he losing to? The retailer, the supermarket, the one who breaks down the bulk product and sells it piece by piece to the individual customer. They are the new king. But now, even the supermarket is losing to someone else. Who? The one who provides home delivery. The one who brings the product right to your front door, right into your hands. That person will conquer the world. Why am I telling you this story? So you can go out and become delivery drivers? No. It is so you will practice Dharma delivery to the people's homes. Remember that. The time for sitting in the temple waiting for people to come to us is over. You must now think about going to them. At first, you must personally make the effort. Later, you can assign your disciples. In our new centers, this is my rule. Go and visit every home in the area. The most stubborn person, if you visit them patiently for 3 years, will eventually soften and come to the temple. The person who goes and knocks on the door for the sake of the Dharma, that monk is the new king. And so it is with our rituals. They cannot be mysterious, forcing people to wonder, what does this mean? I have to look it up. They don't have time for that in this era. A ritual must be something that, the moment a person encounters it, they understand it immediately and like it immediately. Remember that. The goal is to deliver the Dharma directly to their hearts. The ritual must achieve this requirement, to deliver the principles of the path into a person's heart at the very first moment of contact. They must understand it instantly, like it instantly. It should be like what people in the world call love at first sight. Our goal is to create rituals that make people fall in love with the Dharma the very first time they chant. We have 2 points to conclude today's talk. First, if a ritual is good, if it delivers the principles of the path directly to people's hearts, it will immediately increase the number of lay followers at the temple. That is the first point. Second, if a path of spiritual cultivation is good, it will immediately increase the number of people who choose to ordain and join the monastery. This is the conclusion. I respectfully wish all you venerables that your body and mind may always be at peace, and that you will become the great reformers and developers of Buddhism's future. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.